Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question which I'm going to flip in for you guys right here. He asked me, is it okay for a natty lifter to train full body every other day, or is it too much? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Let's do a little bit of crafting and talk about this for a bit. All right, a lot of my long-term followers know I'm really big on this sort of idea. I generally believe that most drug-free lifters and most moderately enhanced lifters will do best from a physiological standpoint if they actually do train full body somewhere between 3 and 4 times a week, depending upon the person and what their workload looks like. Now, that being said, every other day is evenly between 3 and 4 times a week. So that's the cliff notes for the people who don't like the long video. So the short answer, yes, absolutely, fantastic. Again, as long as you keep the workload manageable based upon a number of different factors. Now, a lot of people say, well, why would you recommend this? There are a lot of experts who don't think you can get enough volume per body part to do that. And here's the thing you've got to look at with this. Yeah, we know that volume does contribute to some extent, to a large extent, to how much muscle you gain. But the thing that you need to remember is that weekly training volume per body part isn't entirely dependent upon volume. You can technically grow off of a single set per week. In fact, the data I've seen shows, even the best data shows that, yeah, people generally gain more muscle than most muscle if they do 10 or more sets per body part a week, right? But it's less than double the muscle gains they get off of 1 to 2 sets. Keep that in mind. It's less than double. So actually 10 or 12 sets gives you less than double the muscle gains that you get off of a single set. Now think about that for a minute. What we also know is that drug-free lifters, after they train any given muscle group, it doesn't matter whether you do 1 set or 20 sets, your growth window is only somewhere between 28 and 48 hours. After that, muscle protein synthesis returns to normal. So it stands to reason, and this is generally accepted in the exercise science world, that if you train a muscle every 2 to 3 days, and you split the volume up, your weekly volume, into those sessions, so if you train it, say, 3 times a week or every other day, but you do the same amount of training volume you would have done on a single day, you're going to grow more. So in other words, if you were normally doing 12 sets for a body part, and you space it out and you do 4 sets 3 times a week each, you're actually going to grow more than you would have off those 12 sets. Why? Because you can only stimulate so much muscle growth off of a single training session. But that muscle growth only lasts up to 2 days, and then it stops growing. The week where you trained everything 3 times a week, you're growing possibly as much as 6 days out of the week, whereas with the other method, you're only growing 2 days out of the week. So you've got muscle protein synthesis uptime as a massive factor. So doing everything 3 times a week is going to give you the best chance of maximal muscle protein synthesis uptime, other than maybe going to 4 times a week for some people, depending on if they're recovering or not and what their workloads look like. So the full body done every other day fits very well into there. So why full body? Because full body, in a lot of ways, limits the amount that you can do in one session, and it makes you focus upon exercise economy. And a lot of people say, well, that sucks because then you're going to be limited. You're going to have to do mostly big compounds with very little isolation movements. Correct. Because here's what they found with the total sets per body part per week. It doesn't matter where it comes from. Meaning, your triceps, in terms of that total workload and volume, they don't care if the tension is coming entirely from presses or tricep extensions. Think about that for a minute. As long as you get the total number of sets and workload and everything per week for the triceps, they're going to get maximal muscle growth irrespective of which exercises you choose. Once you reach a certain workload and volume, you're stimulating maximum growth in there. As long as you're getting a couple different angles, which again, if you're overhead pressing, you are working different angles on the triceps, like I covered in the tricep video the other day, than you are from a chest press. So if you're doing every workout, let's say you end up doing 3 sets of chest presses of some type and 3 sets of overhead press of some type. What all muscles are getting work? And you're doing that 3 times a week with an every other day type thing. That's actually 18 sets. For your chest, because the overhead press does work your chest, particularly your upper chest. But that's 18 sets for your chest, your front delts, and your triceps. All right, so those 2 exercises done 3 times a week has stimulated maximal muscle growth in those muscle groups according to all the data we have available. So by forcing yourself to do more compounds because you don't want to be in the gym for 3 hours straight, you can very quickly see how people can reach this total number of sets, because people talk about this a lot, total training volume, but then it's like they throw a bunch of isolation movements trying to get maximal training volume. If you're doing 15 different sets or 20 different sets of isolation exercises every single week, it's really hard to get the frequency that you need for ideal muscle growth and the volume that you need for ideal muscle growth. And by forcing yourself to do this in 3 to 4 training sessions every week, to get out of the gym in a reasonable time, not to burn yourself out, you're forced to use mostly compound movements with very few isolation movements. That's going to allow you to get the most total volume in for each body part in the shortest period of time. It gives you exercise economy, because think about it. Deadlifts work over 50% of the muscles in the body. Squats work like half the muscles in the body. Weighted dips, weighted chin-ups, standing overhead presses, they work tremendous amounts of muscle in the body. So if you're doing any of these exercises or all these exercises for more than 1 set, every workout on a full body program, you end up only needing sometimes 5 or 6 exercises per workout to work every muscle in the body, with at least 3 full work sets, if not more, being done per body part, because all these big heavy compounds are working a large number of muscles, usually at least 3, if not more, different muscle groups. So by doing mostly compounds, which you have to do full body programs effectively, otherwise you just don't have enough time to get many sets in the gym. Otherwise, because you can't come in and do 12 different exercises in a workout. You get too exhausted, you have time, exercise economy issues, you have time issues, it just becomes a problem. So by doing a full body like that, it forces you to maximize the number of different muscles you hit per exercise to really make it work. You get out of the gym in a reasonable time frame and to not burn out. But the beauty of that is that we know from a physiology perspective that's going to give you the most muscle gains, because you end up very easily getting the total volume that you need for every muscle because of doing a wide variety of compound movements multiple times a week, each one of those compounds. Again, think about how many muscles you're working and how many sets if you're doing deadlifts 3 times a week, or every other day, squats every other day, overhead pressing every other day, weighted chin-ups every other day, or barbell rows every other day. Tremendous numbers of muscles are getting work there. And begin with that high frequency, and it actually ends up being high volume on top of it. If you start doing multiple sets of each exercise, it becomes high volume very, very quickly. So this style of training tends to give people who are drug-free about the best results they can expect to have. And here's the thing with it, just like anything else, even though you're forced to do mostly compound movements, there's no reason a person couldn't tack on an isolation movement at the end, 1 or 2 for the last 5 minutes in the gym, and get out of there for whatever their lagging body parts are, because ultimately everybody has body parts that grow slower than others. Everybody does, that's normal. But this type of training forces you to pick the most time-efficient exercises, which are big, heavy barbell movements for the most part, and just big, heavy compounds. But it's still very easy to throw in 1 isolation movement for each of your worst body parts at the end. It takes like 5 minutes. It doesn't really add to your time much. It's when people are trying to do 4 different isolation movements for every body part that it really starts to just take a lot of time and get silly. Which again is the basis of most bodybuilder training, but again, we also know that most bodybuilders are where they are because of drugs and genetics, not their training style. So drug-free lifters, this style of training tends to get them the best results they can expect to get, at least in terms of overall size and strength. And the strength is the added caveat there. Because they're forced to do so many compounds, they get the added bonus of more strength through their full body than they would have if they trained each body part individually. Now, I'm not saying those individual body parts wouldn't be stronger the other way. They wouldn't be just as strong, because they will be from the training, because a big muscle is a strong muscle. But they're training themselves to use large amounts of muscle groups at once through a wide variety of different functions, because you're doing all these different movements. A deadlift is a full movement pattern. A weighted chin-up is a full movement pattern. By doing all of this, they're training themselves to use all of these muscles as one unit. That lends itself to better full body strength, better explosiveness, better athleticism. And so even people who just wanted body composition, for the same amount of hours spent in the gym, they're also going to get the added bonus of better athleticism and fitness for free. It's not like it's costing them more to do it. And that's the beauty of it also. And here's the thing, ultimately. This is how all the old school bodybuilders trained before steroid use became really prevalent. This was the way they trained. Dr. Casey Budd has put out a lot of material on that in the past and explained that. Leroy Colbert, who recently passed away, I believe it was last year, was himself a fitness YouTuber here. Very, very old bodybuilder. Gosh, I think he was up in his 80s. Was he 70s or 80s? I don't remember when he passed, but he had a channel. And he explained that that's how they all trained. That's how he had the biggest natural arms, supposed natural arms. I don't know whether the guy was natural or not, but I'm not going to call a dead man a liar. It's just, that's not my style. But that was his claim of that's how he did it. Training full body every other day. Exactly like this person asked. That was a secret, and he said all the big guys he knew in his day trained that way. That's just how they all trained, and they were very successful at it. That's the way Steve Reeves trained. That's the way guys like Reg Park trained. Now, Reg Park was later enhanced, but he trained that way all through the 50s. And these guys didn't have just fantastic physiques. They were strong. They were brutally strong, in addition to looking the way that they did. Because back then, these guys believed that form should follow function, that if a guy was big and muscular, that he needed to be strong to go with it. Because what's the point otherwise? And that's how they viewed it. They didn't just want to look the part, they wanted to be the part. It was a different mindset, and that style of training worked very, very well for giving them that. And I think most people would agree that you'd go back, even the guys who just want to be natural bodybuilders would look at someone like Steve Reeves and the way he looked, easy enough to find him, and they'd say, okay, that's pretty impressive for a dude on no drugs. And a dude back in the day when we didn't even know as much about nutrition and stuff as we do today. And he still pulled that off pretty successfully. And how did he train? Full body 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's how he trained. Pretty much his entire training career. And it worked very well for him. And it'll work very well for you if you give it a chance. But the thing is, what you have to realize is you don't get caught up in excessive volume and needing to do 6 different isolation movements every workout. Because when you start trying to do that with full body, it starts to become a nightmare. And that's the reason. One of the secrets to the method is that it forces you to use good exercise economy and actually pick the exercises that are going to give you the most bang for the buck. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the gym forever. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.